It's an everyday thing, it's an everyday thing, it's an everyday thing when you let your nuts hang. This government shutdown is going to go on for weeks. We are in day 7 of the government shutdown, and they are not even voting on it. In Washington, they're not even in session. No one's voting on this clear resolution bill continuing. And Trump said yesterday, because all of these federal employees are now furloughed, he said yesterday he doesn't know if he's going to allow these furloughed employees to get back pay from the time they're not working. So how does that land? While they're playing games and not even in a conversation, the last vote they had, I think 2 nights ago, they were like 1.5 trillion so we can give the illegal migrants free healthcare or we're going home. And the Republicans were like, we can't give illegal migrants free anything anymore. There are veterans sleeping under bridges. There are whole families living in their cars. There are people who don't even have any kind of health care, go to work every single day. So if there's any 1.5 trillion going anywhere, it should go to them. Why would we give it to people who are not even citizens of the United States of America? Why can't the Democrats tell us why the illegal migrants are more important to them than American citizens? And why do people who vote Democrat not see that? Why do they not see that? You want your taxpayer dollars to go to someone who's not an American citizen as opposed to it going to an American citizen? You're okay with veterans sleeping under bridges, families living in their cars? You're okay with that? You're okay with these federal employees who are now furloughed, who already struggled to pay their bills like everyone else, and now they don't even have a paycheck, but the expectation is they go to work every day? So now that Duffy guy said yesterday, now there's an uptick in call-outs. Of course, I wouldn't go to work for free either, especially when I do go to work, I still can't pay my bills. So now what's happening, when I said in my last video, this was going to impact more than people not getting Social Security checks because they're getting their Social Security checks allegedly. Now what's happening is it's impacting travel because the air traffic control workers are not going to work. There was already an airline-wide staffing shortage. So now you furlough the air traffic controller people, the one that tells the planes when to take off, when to land. They're not going to work now. In Burbank, California, Google this if you think I'm making it up. They cut off at a certain time of night. They call San Diego and they say, hey guys, we're out. Can you manage our flights? Because they don't even have enough airline traffic controllers to work through the night at the Burbank airport. The Burbank airport has 4 gates, 4 effing gates, and they can't even manage that overnight because there was already a staffing shortage, and the staff that they had, they're like, we're not working overtime. We're not going to work. So now I heard that there's talks about some airport in Chicago. They're getting ready to close it down. I don't know if it's O'Hare or Midway. And Austin yesterday, 2-hour flight delays. And it wasn't because their Wi-Fi wasn't working. It's because they don't have employees. The people that check your bags, make sure no one's bringing anything on the plane that they're not supposed to bring on the plane, they're calling out. And now Trump has, I don't even know if I'm going to pay them when they go back. So now where's the incentive for them to be like, let me just go because it's a government thing because I'll get my back pay. And you might not. Is the Democrats really going to allow this to go on 7 days? Because they are hell bent on illegal migrants getting free health care. It's the wildest thing. I can't even believe that this is happening. We've had shutdowns before. Remember, Obama was down for 17 days because the Republicans didn't want to vote for Obamacare. They don't care. This shit can stay shut down for months. It doesn't impact them because those people up in Washington, they get their paychecks. So you don't get yours and they get theirs. It makes sense, and tell me in the comments why you still vote for Democrats.
See, we hear it on both sides, but she brought up Obama, the government being shut down for 17 days. Meanwhile, I mean, y'all seen the last government shutdown. Do I have to bring the statistics? I'm not a statistics guy, but or the facts. I'm a facts guy. The last government shutdown was for 30 some days, 30 some days. Anyway, it's all good. Uh, I agree for a large majority of what she says. But again, that's why tomorrow we want to talk about the healthcare, the healthcare that they have in this bill, and a solution to this loophole in the healthcare. And but if the healthcare is what we're after, we're not. Nobody wants to outright pay for illegals to have healthcare coverage. But when they go to the hospital and they get serviced, where does that cost go to? It goes to the hospital. The hospital can't just eat that cost. So they have to go to the government to get the money back. Well, if the government refuses to pay the money, what in turn will they do? Raise the price of healthcare, which falls on who? The American people. That is the holdup. Where do we find money to keep the hospitals open? That's the thing. Where do we find the money to keep the hospitals open so that we're not paying? Because that's what nobody wants to pay for illegal immigrants' health care. That's everybody's issue. Well, that's definitely the Republicans' issue. But that's the issue that's holding the government shutdown. So we can sign this bill, but I guarantee you people in the rural areas, it may not be all of you, but let's just say, okay, in Oklahoma, in a lot of rural areas, there are these marijuana farms. So all these marijuana farms have all these immigrants, Chinese, Mexican, all of them, right? They not legal. They're not. And they've been busting them left and right all through Oklahoma. Just look up medical marijuana farm busted. You're gonna see it. Thousands. Say one of those people get hurt. Say one of them get pregnant. Say one of them get in a bar fight and get sent to the emergency room to lose their life. Those hospitals in those rural areas still take those people in. If those small hospitals who only get maybe one emergency a day, and if that's an illegal immigrant and the government doesn't pay that, that hospital's going to shut down. So where's your next hospital? 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour away, 2 hours away? Do you think that'll be helpful for that community? No. All they're going to say is stop hiring illegals. But then who's going to work those farms? Yeah, it's medical marijuana. It's not a big deal. It's not like it's tomatoes and apples and stuff like that. But medical marijuana is a big commodity in Oklahoma. Oklahoma's fat as fuck. Nobody's eating apples and pears and watermelons and stuff. Okay? Let's be real. They're smoking weed and eating McDonald's. And McDonald's, as I said earlier, if they take all the McDonald's away and go to other countries, which will never happen because we fat as fuck in Oklahoma.
We took out, and here's what they want us to put back in. We found that under President Biden, they were spending $3 million for circumcisions and vasectomies in Zambia. We took that out. The Congresswoman says, we're going to shut down government until you put that back in. We found $500,000 of American taxpayer money for electric buses in Rwanda. We found $3.6 million for pastry cooking classes and dance focus groups for male prostitutes.
This was under the Biden administration.
I'm not making this up.
This was under the Biden administration. This is what they're bringing up.
In the budget under President Biden. We took it out. Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez in the socialist wing, the loon wing of the Democratic Party, says we're going to shut down government until you put it back in. I'll just read you a few more that we took out. They are demanding we put back in. $6 million for media organizations for the Palestinians. $833,000 for transgender people in Nepal. $300,000 for a pride parade in Lesotho. $882,000 for social media mentorship in Serbia. $4.2 million. We took it out. The Congresswoman and the socialist wing of their party says we got to put that back in for the open government. $4.2 million for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and intersex people in the Western Balkans and Uganda. I could spend the rest of the afternoon.
Hey, Anthony.
Yeah.
What do you think about Stephen Miller saying Trump has plenary authority?
I can't say I'm surprised that one of the most racist and fascist people in the Trump administration wants the president to have the complete power to enact his racist and fascist policies. But it's a little surprising that he managed to let that slip up on a CNN interview of all places.
What exactly happened and what is plenary authority?
Stephen Miller went on an interview Monday morning with CNN's Boris Sanchez, where he was being questioned about whether Donald Trump has the power to do a lot of the things he's doing regarding ICE policies, immigration suppression, and things like that. And Stephen Miller made a comment that under Title 10 of the U.S. Code, the president has plenary authority, which is basically absolute power with no limitations, right? The authority that like a king or an autocrat would have. He mentioned that the president has plenary authority when it comes to ICE and immigration enforcement. And first of all, that's not true. There are very few examples of true plenary authority in the U.S. government. One of the few examples is the presidential pardon power. But beyond that, the U.S. government and our Constitution is set up to prevent plenary authority. The whole idea with the system of checks and balances is the idea that the power of a monarch or an autocrat is very dangerous, and that it shouldn't be given to anybody. And so with very few exceptions, it doesn't exist. And certainly Title 10 does not give the president the authority to act as a king in regards to immigration matters, despite what Stephen Miller said. But that's not the real scandal in and of itself, right? He certainly said that, and in this case, he's kind of just saying the quiet part out loud, what all of the Republicans and MAGA and the racists and the fascists want. The real scandal is the fact that immediately after he said that on this live interview, he froze for about 15 seconds and was basically just sitting there quiet, blinking, moving his head a little bit in what seemed to be a situation where he was listening through his earpiece to counsel from whoever his advisors are.
He was listening to MAGA Mike. Ah! MAGA Mike told y'all last night. But anyway, he did continue on with the conversation, but they edited it and put the rest of that conversation in. But as you can hear, he's telling us there's no plenary authority. So we can kill that noise. All that noise about plenary authority, we can kill that. It's not in existence. It can't happen. And it won't happen. And that's why you have what you have with the judge blocking Trump, because it just can't happen. So there has to, Chicago and Memphis, two different things. I think Memphis is on the ball with the federal government, and to fight the crime, because there's been like 300 arrests, hundreds of guns been found, things of that nature. But in Chicago is fighting back, and they don't want the help. And it's kind of alarming, not for myself because I don't live in Chicago, but for the people of Chicago. I think they will be upset, and I think they will be put in a more worse position if they keep fighting back on getting the help from the federal government and working with them to control the crime in those high crime areas. And that's just my opinion. I don't want to see the government just run over a city and take over a city, but I do think they need to work together, and that's a fact. But the only reason why I think Donald Trump is targeting these cities is a political. He has a political hit list of cities that pushed back on him in his first term, and that's what that is.
And after that 15 seconds, CNN went to commercial break and then came back and pretended like it was just a technical error. So first of all, that's suspicious, right? Just the fact that he froze in the first place and stopped talking. This is clearly something that he wasn't supposed to say in the first place. It's perhaps showing their hand a little too much at this point, when a lot of the Republicans still believe that the government is functioning as intended with checks and balances. If you go into conservative spaces, a lot of them still think that. And then on top of that, what's really suspicious to me is the fact that CNN basically covered up for him, right? CNN is supposed to be this very left-wing liberal news source. It's in fact considered to be one of the most liberal news sources, at least by the Republicans, right? And they immediately went to break. They came back and pretended it was a technical issue. And then in follow-up videos posted to YouTube of the interview with Stephen Miller, they edited out any mention that he made of this plenary authority, right? So CNN is also covering up for Stephen Miller and the Trump Organization by editing out this very obvious and very serious error that he made in speaking. And while it's not surprising, because CNN, like almost all the major news sources in the U.S., is now owned by Republican megadonors, it does go to show to the public just how corrupted our media has become, that they're editing out such a clear autocratic statement from somebody who has a lot of power in the U.S. to enact policy against immigrants and other minorities, and is using that power through ICE and through the Trump administration to cause real harm to those communities inside the U.S. And I think it's important that the American populace doesn't let this slide, right? We have one of the chief White House staff advisors saying the president has unlimited power, when the whole creation of the United States was to rebel against the idea of an individual with unlimited power, a king, in the first place. And we saw the No Kings protest a couple months ago. There's another one coming up in a little over a week on October 18th. And everybody needs to go and protest this, because the president is not a king. He's not an autocrat, and he doesn't have plenary authority, regardless of what Stephen Miller says.
Breaking news that you probably didn't see on the American news outlets, but I got you, because guess what? I use my VPN, and I stay on top of what the fuck is really going on in America, so that you don't have to. But if you need to, go fact check my shit, okay? Especially before you come in my comments and ask stupid questions or make stupid ass comments. Here we go. Trump has fired the Navy Chief of Staff, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, the head of the Navy SEALs, the Naval Operations Chief, the U.S. Naval Reserve Chief, the head of the U.S. Cyber Command, not like we need his motherfucking ass, the head of the U.S. Cyber Command, the head of the Defensive Intelligence, the Coast Guard Commandant, the Air Force Chief of Staff, the Air Force Vice Chief of Staff, the top of AF Global Strike Command, the top legal officer of the Air Force, the top legal officer of the Army, are y'all seeing a trend? And the top legal officer of the Navy, and the top legal official of the CIA. Did you see that on the news today? Bet you didn't, but here you go. Like I said before, fact check my shit if you don't believe me. That is what's happening in your country today. Yo, well.
I actually have I wouldn't say a colleague, but a guy, because I used to work in shipping, and I'm talking about like not like Amazon shipping. I'm talking about like actual cargo ships. And I had to deal with American Coast Guards and all sorts of the tariff information. I had to deal with all that. And that's just a small portion of how I worked in sales. And I used to have to go to these conferences, so I would meet with these people. And you can go back on my Instagram from millennials ago, and you see your boy suit and tied up and talking to these people, and not talking to these people, but I'll be in some of these conferences taking selfies like, shit, I'm about to fall asleep in this mug. Because they were boring. It was just jibber jabber. But a lot of these times I would meet people, have lunch with people, and I become friends with these people because I see them often. I talk to them and see how my business affects their business affects my business, and how could we work together and what could we do. And one of the guys that I would frequent with that kept me in a loop was one of the top staffers in the Coast Guard. Guess what? He was fired. But y'all don't have to take my word for it. Butterfly in the sky. I could go twice as hard.
Trump has been doing this thing where he sets the house on fire and then puts it out, and we all supposed to clap. And the more times he starts more fires, the less time we have the ability to capture exactly what's going on.
Especially
so it's just flooding with all this culture war shit.
bro.
The trade war shit that just happened. Donald Trump just started the dumbest and shortest trade war of all time, and he's getting credit like he won something because it's so.
He didn't get anything. Literally.
Trump, via executive order, threatened tariffs and imposed tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China, our three biggest trade partners by like a long run. He did 25% on all imports from Mexico and Canada. Oil and energy from Mexico and Canada is tariffed at 10%, and he did 10% on all imports from China. He says we're gonna do all that. I'm like, why? This nigga talks about, the fentanyl and the migrants are coming in, and Canada and Mexico isn't doing enough to stop it. Neither is China. China's on the other side of the fucking world. Okay, cool. Because China has a underground fentanyl market. Yeah, cool. You want to know what I found out in the research for this? First of all, back in December, Canada, they signed a $900 million deal to work with the United States and their border to like toughen up the border. They have Black Hawk helicopters. We were just talking about Black Hawk. They have Black Hawk helicopters flying over the border and a lot more like equipment there to stop the fentanyl trade, right? They already did that back in December. Then Trump blew this shit up and is like, no, y'all not doing enough. Ask me how much Canada like makes up of the fentanyl trade.
How much, J. William J?
Less than 10%.
It again?
Less than 10% of the fentanyl that enters the country at all has anything to do with Canada. One of the things that they did to talk up this whole thing, the Trump press secretary goes out there, she's like, oh, fentanyl's killing tens of millions of Americans. Trump and JD Vance are going out there, they're saying, oh, this fentanyl is killing 250,000, 300,000. At the peak of like overdoses and opioid epidemic, like 2022 and 2023 was when it was worse for fentanyl. The top it ever reached was 114,000. That's still a lot. That's still really bad. Leading up to these tariffs that he just implemented, it was falling by more than 21% since June of 2023. It fell below 90,000 deaths in a 12-month period for the first time in half a decade. On top of this, the U.S. DEA, they said the amount of fentanyl they've seized on the southern border from Mexico has decreased from last year by about 20%, and the potency of the pills that they're getting are way less. We're already having
you're already on the road.
Yeah,
exactly.
On top of this, the Biden administration and a bunch of people within the DEA, U.S. drug officials, were saying that the Biden administration and things that they were doing with China was already getting more of a handle on the street fentanyl trade, right? So from every angle, this problem is starting to be solved in the same way that border crossings are lower than they were at the beginning of Trump's first term. He does tariffs, blows up the fucking economy for it, and then does it a day later and is like, yeah, nah, we're good actually.
Talking about someone on the Instagram comments talking about, man, this is bad short term, but you need to look at the long term.
Yep.
I'm like,
you look at the long game. A lot of these motherfuckers
you
can't
won't
survive
eat long term. You'll be malnourished long term.
Thing is, we're gonna come out of this and they're gonna say, oh, Trump, you know, he threatened the tariffs and they got them to change their tone. Canada agreed to do more of what they were already doing. Mexico was like, hey, can y'all not do this? Also, you gotta crack down on them guns that y'all keep giving to the cartel. Trump was like, okay, and now we have a 30-day truce. Nothing happened.
Nothing happened.
Nothing happened. We're bullshitting.
Let me tell you what it is.
We're bullshitting. Trump has been doing.
Hey man, shout out to these young kings, man. They doing their research and figuring it out. Listen, man, that's what we gotta do. We gotta tap, like, man, as Americans, we gotta tap in. We gotta understand what's really going on in our country. It's not all cut and dry. It's things that are happening, and a lot of talking points are being put out there, but we're not breaking it down enough, and we're not understanding. As citizens, we're not understanding what's going on. And that is the reason why I tap into so many influencers and people who do the research. And I'll tap in because now I have a platform to utilize to bring more information to the people. We're not Congress. We're everyday people. You taking your black ass to work in the morning, or white ass, or Mexican ass, whatever ass you got, you going to work in the morning. Or if you got the day off, maybe you going to OU Texas weekend. But whatever, you're not worrying about the tariffs when you go to the football game Saturday. You're not worrying about the IRS being shut down. You're not that's not something you should have to worry about. But when this comes to us, we have to know what's going on, and that's what I'm doing. I'm bringing it to you, as I'm being schooled just as much as you're being schooled.